This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for September 6th, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. A bit of a correction. I need to make a minor correction from last week. I said that Chicago was next on President Trump's list to be cleaned up. That was only partially true. While it is one of his targets, he is not going to send the National Guard unless the governor of Illinois or the mayor of Chicago requests it. President Trump has certain authority in Washington, D.C., but everywhere else is a slightly different issue. The problem is that the mayor of Chicago not only believes that his failing city is safe, but he also falsely believes that the denizens of Chicago will stand up to the National Guard. It is an abominable city, and although I have sympathy for those who are dealing with these problems because of how others voted, some who want to leave will just bring their broken policies with them. The mayor will probably somewhat enforce law and order when Kamala Harris comes through with her book tour, revoking her Secret Service. There are more than a few things in this world that I do not understand. At the top of the list is why we pay for the security of irrelevant people. Once a person stops doing their job, they do not deserve any perks of said job. I do not get an employee discount once I leave my job. Presidents and vice presidents, as well as congressional representatives, should not get paid after they leave office. That was the original plan by the founders. They imagined that these people would go back to their farms once they were done. That has not worked out in practice. Not only because some of them essentially serve for life, but because they get paid for doing nothing after they leave. Not to mention their security. I can understand Secret Service protection while they are in office, but once they are out of office, they should be on their own. President Otto Penn gave Kamala Harris Secret Service protection beyond what the law would normally allow. President Trump revoked this. This is right before she is about to go on a major book tour. But I do not care. His reasoning is simple. People cannot just have government protection forever. Not only is it a waste of money, it is a waste of resources. Officially, he has no sympathy should something happen to her, because life happens. Again, if she were in office and mattered, that would be one thing. Granted, she did not do much while in office, but I digress. Either way, something tells me that unlike President Trump, she will be keeping every penny of her lifetime paycheck. A paycheck that I would argue she did not actually earn. Because she, like other Democrats, was more interested in policing language than criminals. Triggering the Limeys. According to the New York Post, 30 people a day are arrested for speech crimes in the United Kingdom. This is because the country that Americans broke away from does not protect speech. Even Americans who are there on holiday are being arrested. Now a British police commissioner is threatening to extradite Americans for posting memes. I do not know if this is only for those who are there and got out in time, or for something that is flagged on a UK server. Either way, I normally try to use a VPN that is here in North Texas, so that my results are more catered, but I will switch it to the UK for some time now. I just want to see what will happen. Either way, I do not see why law enforcement is arresting people for posting memes. They have plenty of work that they could be doing, arresting the roaming migrant gangs who abuse women. However, those crimes are committed by special people who are above the law. These people who thought that they were above the law can potentially be arrested. Battle over MAHA. There are a lot of swamp creatures who need to leave Washington. And civilized society, for that matter. The head of each federal department, from the Federal Reserve to the military to the Centers for Disease Control, must act at the behest of the president. If they act on their own or pursue their own interests, they become operatives of the deep state.
So how do you define it?
Well, the way I would define the deep state is an increased willingness by more and more government civil servants to pursue political objectives rather than stand up for the values of the institution they're a part of. They are not neutral. They're not politically neutral.
Let us focus on the CDC for a moment. The CDC's central planning failed during the pandemic. Their actions and recommendations only exasperated the uncommon cold. Now, former Director Susan Menares accused Robert F. Kennedy Jr. of supporting unscientific ideas. She probably wore 2 or 3 masks while mocking the fact that China created the virus. Now RFK is under even more scrutiny. While I would love to talk more about the things that he said that are dangerous, YouTube does not allow free speech. Either way, something tells me that he is going to stay strong and continue to make America healthy again, just as his boss is making America great again by arresting the enemies of America, arresting a globalist. George Soros funded the district attorneys who got the rioters of Black Crimes Matter out of jail. Now President Trump wants him brought up under RICO charges. This law goes back to 1970 and was designed to stop organized crime, and can even be used to stop international actors. In addition to financing these attorneys, we now know that a lot of these rioters were being paid. Okay, we knew that for a while, but the sheeple are just now finding this out. Moving on. If it can be proven that he was behind this as well, thanks to his Open Society foundations, it will be a huge step towards slowing down the globalists. The reign of the globalists is inevitable, but I want to avoid living under their domination as long as possible. Now something tells me that Soros's lawyers will keep him from ever being prosecuted. In the meantime, other global powers are eyeing America. But will President Trump succumb to them? Only partially securing the border. When a Democrat disagreed with the official position of the Biden administration, he was attacked and sometimes ostracized. If you want an example of the former, look to Melissa Horton after she voted to reject welfare for illegals. If you want an example of the latter, look to John Fetterman after he gave support for Israel rather than the Palestinian terrorists. However, when Republicans disagree with President Trump, the left considers it a civil war in the MAGA movement. That is an extreme description, but I guess to people who are supposed to all think the same, any disagreement is tantamount to civil war. President Trump has been hard at work securing the border, even though the Democrats want the illegals to get in to get their votes. Now he wants 600,000 potential spies from the Chinese Communist Party to come into American universities. Naturally, there is a lot of backlash, as this just gives a dangerous nation listening posts in America. Officially, President Trump is doing this so that these universities do not collapse. I want to believe that President Trump is playing 3D chess with this, but I do not see the end game. Either way, we have trusted President Trump before, and he has only rarely disappointed us. I say that we are free to disagree, but should also give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, he is protecting us a lot more than President Autopen, or the so-called border czar, blowing up a pirate ship. The military blew up a ship that was transporting terrorists and narcotics bound for America. I say goodbye and good riddance. Some things need to be obliterated. The same activists and fake news outlets who did not want security in the crime-ridden cities, who did not want terrorists like Tren de Aragua or MS-13 even charged, are assuring us that there is no reason to have had this ship destroyed. These are also the same people who tell us that President Trump will start World War III every time that he takes military action. Spoiler alert, they have been wrong every time. And so, as usual, I'm going to give our president the benefit of the doubt that he deserves. But securing our border is just one part of the puzzle. Our elections also need to be secure. Securing federal elections. The same people who told you that the 2016 election was stolen based on unfounded claims created by the Clinton campaign, that were then weaponized by the Obama administration, want you to believe that the 2020 election was the most secure election in American history. President Trump, as of this writing, intends to pass an executive order mandating photo ID for federal elections. He also wants all of the voting to be done by paper ballots and to severely limit mail-in ballots. Recall that absentee voting for people like soldiers is not the same as mail-in voting. Again, there's a lot more to say, but criticizing the 2020 election is forbidden. Officially, elections are under state control, but the same Democrats do not have a problem with the government having made certain other laws about elections. They do not object to eliminating poll taxes or literacy tests. Oh wait, the Democrats did object to that because they did not want certain people voting. Democrats do not want photo ID today because they want dead people and illegals to vote. It was never about funding the polling location or making sure that everyone votes. It was always about them securing Democrat votes by any means necessary. Also, this is not preventing anyone on welfare from voting, as you already need that ID to cash the welfare check. So who is being stopped other than illegals and dead people? Speaking of dead people, let us discuss President Trump's miraculous resurrection. President Trump is alive. Over the 3-day weekend, President Trump took some much-needed time off from making America great again. Something tells me that he demanded only to be briefed on national security and family. As such, his staff did not tell him that he was dead. Yes, the same fake news outlets that were depressed beyond reason that he survived in Butler were hoping that he died from a stroke. These people are truly sick, and many are irredeemable. At least in America, you will not be arrested for saying the wrong thing, unlike the untold number of people in Britain. At least, not yet. But if you address a school shooter by the wrong pronouns, you had better print a retraction. But wishing President Trump harm or death is acceptable to these people. But the good news is, he is and will be our president for some time. Moving on to what has the makings of good news, the survivors speak out. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. There's no way to prove that, but more than enough people want the truth to stay buried. All I know is that I would bet dollars to donuts that President Trump is not on the list, if for one reason, and one reason only. The Biden administration and the rest of the Democrats did not release the records. If the list was full of Republicans and patriots, the entire list would have been published by now. But because it is likely full of globalists, Democrats, and rhinos, the records have been memory holed. However, the victims are claiming that they will be releasing their own list of clients. Democrats are back to believing all women now that it can hurt a Republican. I do not know for sure who is on that list, but I have my suspicions. I reserve any further commentary on this matter until I know more facts. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.